Hi, thanks for tuning in to the Los Angeles Times Envelope's Emmy Contenders chat series. I'm Michael Ordoña. You got through that mouthful, and as a reward, we have for you the father-son team behind the award-winning Canadian hit comedy Schitt's Creek. Executive producers and stars Eugene Levy and Dan Levy. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us.
It's a real pleasure to have you guys here. Not to shine the apple, I've been watching you for a very long time, and I had the pleasure of going through your show for this, so.
Okay, good.
I do have to admit I had to clear saying the name of your show on camera with my editor first. I thought I might have to pronounce it the way Moira might pronounce it to get away with it. How do you think Moira would pronounce it on camera?
She would never say it, actually. That's one of the rules of our show, is that Moira never says the name. Never has and never will. So, I mean, one could only assume, but to your defense, it is a real last name.
Yes.
It is an Irish last name, so I would imagine that the Los Angeles Times would have to publish an article with the person's last name if someone whose last name was Schitt, spelled S-C-H-I-T-T, was ever involved in some kind of political or criminal or...
That's actually one of the reasons that we
activity?
got the show cleared on our Canadian network, CBC, was that, you know, if there was a news story and somebody had the name Schitt, S-C-H-I-T-T, they're in every phone book around the world. That would you show the name or would you not show the name? You'd have to show the name, and they said, well, we have no argument for that, so sure, that's the name of the show.
We're the only network to get behind that philosophy. But here we are.
Yeah.
Yes, I can think of other possible exceptions to that rule that I won't go into for this family web broadcast. So to catch people up who may not be so familiar with the show, because in the US it's on Pop TV.
And Netflix, yes.
And Netflix, yes, the first 4 seasons are on Netflix.
Yeah.
Schitt's Creek is about the Roses, who are a very rich family who have lost everything and are forced to relocate to a small town that they bought as a joke for its name. The Roses are Johnny Rose, played by Eugene. He's the patriarch of the family. His wife is Moira, played by the great Catherine O'Hara, who is a former soap star. His son is David, played by Daniel. Yeah. And his daughter is,
Alexis.
Alexis.
Yeah.
99% on the pop quiz.
I know, I failed on that one. Played by Annie Murphy.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Moira was the soap star, not Catherine O'Hara.
Oh, true.
Yeah, just in case there was some confusion.
Yes.
I'm sure there was a lot of confusion over that one.
Although if Catherine O'Hara wanted to be a soap star, I'm sure she could do it brilliantly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she could do anything. Anyway, so the Roses at first want to get out of Schitt's Creek any way they can, but eventually it becomes their home, and the people there become like their family. So, what did I miss? What is the show really about that I've missed?
Well, the show is, I mean, that's the kind of the fish out of water aspect of the show, about this family learning to live in 2 adjoining motel rooms in a very small town. But the show is really about the family.
Yeah, I think at its core, the sort of surface story is really there to facilitate the sort of philosophy of the show, which is that when all the money is taken away, what really means something at the end of the day. And in this particular case, it's about this family who had lived such an estranged life that was often bandaged by money and material possessions and gifts, slowly realizing that love is actually worth so much more than anything they had previously owned. So it really is sort of season after season, we peel back the layers on what it is to love one another and what it is to love yourself. That's sort of the emotional underpinning of the show.
I would agree completely. And not to get away from the comedy of the show, but I think, for me anyway, the fish out of water humor sort of goes away at the end of season 2 when you really kind of, you have that scene where you stand up to your friends.
Yeah, that was a bit of a turning point, I think, for the Rose family and for the show. And that was at a point, the family had to kind of reach that point where you got to an emotional plateau with the family and what their being in Schitt's Creek actually means in terms of their growth.
Yeah.
It was always intended to be a nice balance between sentimentality and emotionality in the comedy, but you do have to earn that. And you know, you have to lay the foundation, and in our case, we sort of really, the first season and a half, I would say, was about really perpetuating this strange fish out of water world, and realizing that this family is so out of touch and is so inept when it comes to just basic life skills. And once the groundwork for that was really laid, then we could start slowly but surely sort of tent-poling these emotional moments for this family, as any family would experience when they went through a situation like this. So it was a slow, gradual build, and one that I think we tried to at least be very careful about in terms of how and when and why we would start to allow the emotionality of the show to start to shine through.
Yeah, I think that there's a pretty clear turn in the series at that point. I mean, the stories get deeper, the relationships deepen.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say about them being sort of incompetent people, I think it's great to see you playing Johnny, this competent, I would say, confident
Bit of a
guy.
stretch, huh?
Well, you know, we're so used to the characters you play, say, in the Christopher Guest movies, or the, you know, those ensemble films. So I like seeing him take charge.
Well, it was a pretty, it's a pretty exciting way to go for me, because Johnny is the, I would say the straight central figure in the show. And, you know, it's true, I've spent a career kind of playing the funny characters that kind of come in, and really your job is to be funny for a few scenes, and then, you know, that's pretty much it. I was excited about kind of doing this, and again, I think in all great half-hour shows, certainly that I've been watching, and shows that I grew up watching. I mean, for me, you know, going back to The Honeymooners, going back to Jack Benny, going back to Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore, Seinfeld, Everybody Loves Raymond. There are shows where one figure is the central figure, actually the straight man in the show, and one person has to kind of be grounded. One person has to kind of make sure the story is moving, while the comedy kind of floats around him. And I was very excited to kind of play that, because I really have not done that before in any great capacity.
Yeah, Taxi and Cheers come to mind.
That's right. Yes, exactly. Right, Judd Hirsch, and right, sure. There's a ton of them. It's a great formula, and I was quite ready and willing and excited to do it. Yeah.
So I understand you came up with the nut of the show, the idea of the show, and then you brought your father in to develop it. So starting with his character, what were some of the building blocks you thought were necessary for him, both of you?
For Johnny?
Yeah, for Johnny.
Well, you know, it's funny because it went through kind of different incarnations, the show. Originally, you know, it was you know, the Rose family wasn't the Rose family, it was a different family, and Johnny was one of three brothers involved in that thing, kind of the incompetent brother. It morphed into kind of what it is now, that Johnny ran a very successful video rental
Blockbuster
chain, like the second largest video chain in North America or the world, and it was quite major. So there had to be some credibility with Johnny, and more so than that, his executive skills had to kind of seep into, you know, his personal life as well, in terms of what do you do to handle a crisis. This crisis of losing everything and having to move your family to a kind of a small town motel, you know, somebody has to keep it together. Somebody has to be the positive force. Somebody has to have a more positive outlook about, we will make it out of here.
Yeah, I think inherently in the story as well, we made a very conscious choice to not have the Rose family be criminals. They didn't lose their money because they were swindling and, you know, money from other people, or it was like tax evasion or anything. Right. They lost their money because they had a business manager that ran away with it. Yeah. So fundamentally and inherently from day one, I think we were always going to root for this family in the end, because it didn't do anything to deserve it. So that was always a really important layer in terms of building the empathy for these people. And I think for Johnny to have built this business, and with the death of video stores, we have again another layer of empathy. He's just trying to stay on top of this world that he at one point was really ruling, and then to see him drop out completely and have to build his way back up. It really was important, I think, for us that they didn't do anything wrong. They were just, they might have lived a little too luxuriously for too long, and now, find themselves incapable of buying groceries.
All right.
So
difference between you guys and Arrested Development, I guess. But I want to say, just thinking about the fact that your business was video rentals, it's a little ironic that it's your presence on Netflix that has really broken you in the United States, I think. I mean, it wasn't until then that you got the Critics' Choice nomination, because then people really started to see it and appreciate the show. So Netflix, which of course killed Blockbuster and all of those, has given you guys life.
I don't know what that says for us karmically.
It's revenge.
But it's interesting talking about the Netflix model as well, because I feel like in a way, the addition of Netflix added momentum to what was slowly building on Pop, and Pop has been our home network since day one, and has slowly been surely doing a great job of promoting the show, and they've been slowly building an audience. And I think it's the combination of an audience finding it on Pop, feeling like it's a show that they've discovered themselves that a lot of people don't know, and at the time a lot of people didn't know about it. And I think there's when a fan has a sense of ownership over something, it almost makes them even more proprietary. It's like they feel like they own something. They have they have an investment in what you're doing. So when Netflix came on board, we were having a launch in June, and then January, and then we were having a launch in October. So in a way, you ended up having two premieres to two different groups of people, and the water cooler conversation, I think, never had a chance to go away. So for us, it was that rolling. It was the rollout of having two different premieres for our show, which I think really helped keep it afloat.
I should note to anyone here who isn't watching this in Canada that the show is very well known in Canada. You've won like 11 Canadian Screen Awards, something like that.
Well, we've had quite a few nominations, and we've won. We've won a few CSAs. Yes, absolutely.
In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you guys set a kind of record, right? When the two of you were nominated in the same category. I think it's the first time a father and son were nominated as Best Actor at the same time.
It's the first time in the history of the entertainment business that the father-son have been nominated for the same category in the same show.
Well, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Of course. No, it is. It is. It's an awkward feeling.
I'm not awkward about it at all.
For me.
I go into it just expecting to lose.
I know, and I won the first year. I think I actually won, and I said, well, I'm supposed to be the straight man in this show, and I'm winning Best Comedy Actor, so I'm doing something definitely wrong.
Terribly wrong, yeah.
In my performance. But it's a very strange feeling when you're up against your son. It's just, it's I don't know.
We're fine.
I could take
Strange,
myself
but
out
it's
of the...
super cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, listen, awards and that kind of recognition is always, I think it should be the icing on the cake. You don't get into this to be nominated together in
It's the
something.
whole cake for me.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's everything.
Well, then in
Yes.
that case, I
That's
should
the whole
probably just
cake.
leave you, and you can carry the rest of the interview.
No, it's all about awards.
I believe that they've been nominated every year of the show, I think.
CSAs?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think.
Oh yeah. We get multiple nominations, which is great. I mean, it really is a wonderful feeling to know that the show is being recognized and touted
And that the Canadian
respected
Academy
and-
has great taste.
Yes, of
Yes.
course.
You know what I mean?
Far better taste than those silly people in the United States.
Listen.
I have to mention Catherine O'Hara again because I'm just, frankly, a big fan.
It's a novel opinion.
Yes. Nobody's heard of her.
No.
Yes.
there are a lot of things about the show that are funny, but for me, pretty much every time she speaks is funny to me. That very unique diction and register she uses. You've worked with her for so long. Does she still get you? I mean, does she ever break you once in a while with what she does?
Kind of break me up?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, it happens
break
every...
you emotionally.
Yes. Break you over her knee.
Well, yes. I don't know. Break me. Yes, I think she does. It's not like working with Chris Elliott, who is like just can get you a million kind of different ways. Catherine, like me, really, we're character actors. We get our laughs through character, and there are some very, very funny moments that she has as Moira, and as Catherine, she can nail you with a line too that just comes out of nowhere, and and yes, she can get you. She's been doing it for 40 years. She's quite amazing, but she is. I think like Annie Murphy plays Alexis on the show, Catherine, myself, and I think like all of us, we're not really out there comedically in terms of like we just have to get laughs every second of our lives, right? We get our laughs through our characters, and Catherine is so chameleon-like when she gets into a character. It becomes like you cannot see any seams. This character, Moira, that she has really created is one of the most iconic, I think, characters of any television comedy that's ever been on the air. It's quite amazing.
She's really funny. But I think what you're saying about the laughs come from characters is really true. Obviously, I swear that wasn't me. Obviously, you have a long history of that, and so does she. But I think a good example of that is in the climax of season 5. You've got this performance of Cabaret,
Yeah.
and in a show that gets its laughs from gags, that would be like a really bad performance, and people would be doing terrible, awful things. But the humor is the stuff leading up to that performance and the things that happen after it, and it has this really beautiful moment in it for for Emily's character.
Stevie.
For Stevie's character,
right.
when she sings Maybe This Time,
Yeah.
in a way that I've never seen it sung before that was really effective. So yeah, I agree with you there. But to get to your character, you look terrified.
Yes, I'm ready.
Yeah, when the show sort of took that turn after season 2 and the relationship started to deepen and you get into that really beautiful long-term relationship that now looks like it's going to be a marriage.
Yes.
It looks like while he's still outrageous, he still does these like he has these absurd behaviors. It's really settling into something that's lovely to watch.
Thanks. I'm scared of what it was like before. But no, I think like anything, when you enter a situation that is foreign to you, I think you put your guards up. I think you are not yourself. You are someone who is protecting yourself from vulnerability and from weakness. And I think with the character of David, not to intellectualize it too much, because he is what he is, but I think he came from a life that was not settled, and it wasn't safe, and his relationships were not stable, and it was a slow and gradual realization for him that he could open up and be himself and allow people in and allow love in and allow himself to love. And again, that kind of revelation in a character, particularly one that was so rooted in like an affectation and buying his lifestyle, took quite a long time to earn, and took, in this case, it took about 2.5 seasons for us as writers to say, okay, we can go here now with him because the audience is on board and they've invested in the character, and this will now be an exciting slow burn into like what has become now an engagement between him and his boyfriend Patrick. So it's been really fun to play. I think comedy, what we've always sort of prioritized in writing this show is character work and the fact that characters change, and that I think audiences want to see characters in comedy change. Because I think depending on the kind of comedy you're making, people don't expect comedic characters, people in sitcoms, to change. That's part of why you tune into a sitcom, is to get the,
Seinfeld.
to get the characters and just get them doing what they do all for season after season. So for us, knowing I think the talent that we have in our cast, it was always really important to know that there would be an arc for these characters, each and every one of them, and that arc would be rooted in something comedic and something emotional. And it leads for really interesting things to play as actors, and really some really juicy things to write as a writer.
Now I'm going to really put you on the spot by asking you what you've seen in his performance over these 5 seasons. How has he evoled
Gotten okay
as David?
as an actor.
No.
As a writer and director.
No, right out of the gate in season 1. I mean, this was the toughest thing. Not the toughest thing about starting this show was just kind of, there was a slight unknown factor because we'd never really done anything. We'd never really worked together before. And although it's true, I watched Daniel, I call him Daniel, but I'll call him Dan for the show here.
You can call me whatever you'd like.
DL. So
That's a no-go for me.
Yeah, so I watched him on MTV Canada for many years up there, and he had a great on-camera presence. He was doing a lot of stuff live. He was like right there, doing great interviews, doing great comedy sketches, and like there definitely was, and he was funny. He made us laugh at home like crazy, like very, very funny. And we started the show, and 2 things. One is an actor, one is a writer. 3 things. One is a producer. But he came out of the gate like just with flags flying. Sorry,
Lentils.
Don't worry.
that's just lunch. Yeah, performance-wise, very, very funny on camera and very, very strong. And I was actually, I have to say, very impressed because for me, it's coming out of a place that I didn't know where that was coming from, and it was like right there. Now, over the seasons, this character has really shown.
Someone is not wanting you to compliment me, I'll tell you that. There is a jackhammer that is really like, enough.
So many, and I heard a voice up there going, David. Just so many colors coming out as these defenses start coming down in David's character, and there's so many beautiful, beautiful moments that he has had over the years, just heart-wrenching moments that are just beautifully executed and performed. So yeah, I'm kind of proud.
Thanks.
Now you can turn red. Before we get into Patrick, which I really want to talk about Patrick.
Sure.
I just want to mention this one other actress on the show. I don't know if you've ever met her. She plays Twyla.
I hear she's great.
Yeah, she's wonderful in the show. I know this sounds like shining the apple, but I look forward to the cafe scenes because I think she's wonderful. I wrote something about her, the way she brings this sort of sweet distress to her scenes at times.
Yes.
And of course, she's often being manipulated by your daughter.
Yeah.
So. How is it bringing?
That's
other kid in the
that's
show?
something else. I mean, the experience of working with both Dan and Sarah on the show has always been a bit surreal for me. I mean, especially in the beginning, the first couple of seasons, when I'm in a scene and I keep thinking to myself, I can't believe I'm in a scene with my kids. I mean, that's while I'm actually working, which shows you how unprofessional I actually am on set. Twyla is like, to me, is the little heartbeat of Schitt's Creek. She is she's kind of at the core of it all with her smile, with her sensibility, her kind of feel good, wanting to please, wanting people to feel good around her, and I know what you mean about going into the cafe, and I love going into the cafe for Twyla, to have her come to the table, whatever. And Sarah, she's done an amazing job as well. In a role that's kind of like, it's kind of tough to know that you have to go to a table. Those scenes are really tricky, because, as an actor, you're just kind of standing off, waiting for your cue to come up to a table, and then you got to just like get there right when you're supposed to get there, do your stuff, and it's easy to sit in the booth in the cafe and just kind of, it's no sweat, but Twyla is it's very, very sweet, and she makes me smile every time I look at her face.
Let's hope.
What I wrote is that I love her cheery dismay.
Yeah. It's always fun writing Twyla too, because her personal life is such a mess, and yet she chooses optimism. She chooses to be better, which I think is, again, so emblematic of the town and what the town stands for. And yeah, I mean, it's a really fun, it's a lovely character. And I think, like any great show, you look for the characters that appear on the regular in the places like the cafe or at Bob's Garage, or these sort of wonderful, funny, lovely characters that you get to sort of pepper over the show, and they become these, places that you come to know and love, these people that you come to know and love in these places. It's really fun. Yeah. She's had quite a wild ride with her mother, Twyla, as a character.
Twyla, yeah. So, I just wanted to call her out because I think she does a wonderful
I'm glad
job
you
on the show.
did.
All right, I want to talk about Patrick.
Sure.
The scene where he admits to you that his parents don't know about your relationship, I thought that was really lovely. And then, of course, his scene in the cafe with the parents. I know I'm becoming an old softie, and especially as a parent now, like anything with parents and kids, I think gets to me. But it actually, I have to admit, it choked me up a little bit. That was just so beautifully played by him. His name is Noah Reed.
Yeah.
He played those scenes so simply, no actory stuff, just very, very real. So I don't really have a question there. I guess I'm looking for your comments.
Well, I've
on
actually worked watching David and Patrick, watching Dan and Noah work together is really such texture, and it's such a great, beautiful relationship. That episode that you're actually talking about, the scene before Patrick comes out to his parents, they had a beautiful scene with David and Patrick together, right, where you wanted to find out whether he's actually told his parents about you, and that scene is one of the most beautiful scenes that we've done on the show.
I agree.
Well, for me, it was a really important episode that I knew we were going to get to. I knew that this was part of his character that, he presents as this incredibly composed and confident guy, and I knew where we wanted to end up with these people, which was an engagement. And I knew that there had to be a major crisis that happened to the two of them as a couple before we could sort of pave the way for this engagement, because otherwise it would feel too easy. It's a character who is newly out of the closet and seemingly hadn't had too much pushback, because obviously the town is such a supportive town, but it was necessary, I felt, for him to go through this. But the challenge became, how do you go about telling a coming out story that hasn't been told before? And more specifically, how do you go about telling a coming out story that lives within the world of our show? And I had made a choice in season 1 that this town was not going to have any judgment or bigotry or homophobia or racism or intolerance or of any kind. So how do you go about telling a story that is often met with such resistance and pain within the sort of softness of our world? And I think once we realized that the conflict was going to be the parents and David and Johnny sort of messing up this whole plan, David thinking that his boyfriend's parents knew about their relationship, when in actuality, all they really knew was that they were very close business partners. And then for them to find out, and for a moment, the audience to wonder, are they upset? And what's that going to mean? And then to find out that the reason they were concerned was because they were, in a way, hurt that they didn't feel like they had laid a soft enough foundation for their son to come to them and tell him these things, because it wouldn't have mattered. That once we had that angle, the episode really wrote itself, and for me to be able to write an episode like that is so meaningful, personally, and in terms of what we can say and put out into the world. And to show parents accepting their children is something that I will always continue to sort of fight for. So yeah, and I think the scenes really fell into place, and fortunately we had laid the groundwork for Patrick as a character to get into this situation and to say what he said. He had so much confidence and conviction, going into it, that to watch him say, okay, no, I owe this to us as a couple, to tell my parents and to be out completely, was great. And yeah, Noah's a tremendous actor and really carried those scenes so beautifully and effortlessly, and I was really proud of that episode.
I don't remember, did you write that episode?
I did, yes.
Yeah, I think you set that up beautifully in the scene with you and the parents, when the first things they're saying are, could we have done anything differently? And of course we think we know where they're going to go.
Playing on all the,
Yeah.
what we've heard in the past, of parents feeling like they'd done something to ruin their child by having them be gay. Playing on that, except it's the reverse.
Right.
Was sort of a really interesting take for us, and yeah.
And talking about the town, how accepting the town is, I have wondered if maybe if this show had been made in the United States, if it would have had a bit nastier an edge to it, because this show is so, as you put it, it's kind of soft and accepting and tolerant.
I actually think it's why people in America are watching the show, because we're in such it's a cloudy time, and it's a thunderous time, and it's a rainy time for all of us, and I think, well, for some of us. And I think there's a rise of well-intentioned television, and I think there's a reason why a lot of our success came after the election. I have to correlate the fact that there is unrest in the country, and if you can provide a safe space where people can turn to for entertainment, half an hour once a week, or whether it's a binge or whatever, where people can sort of sit down in front of their television screens and see a gentler world than the one they're living in, that people will naturally gravitate toward that.
Well, there's that, and also the fact that our broadcaster in Canada, CBC, really gives us carte blanche. They don't really get involved in the creative at all. We don't get any notes from them. So you're able to craft the show exactly the way you want it without any interference from networks or studios or whatever. Now, whether there would be any, whether it would have been a bumpier ride telling this story.
I've had friends who have worked on television where there have been gay characters, and in the writers' rooms there are discussions as to how many times those characters could kiss. And that's on like queer positive television shows. So, there's still a lot. We still have some ways to go in terms of really, I hate normalizing it because there's nothing not normal about it. But there's, for us to take a stand and say, as I've said it in the past, these characters are in a relationship. They're going to kiss as many times as a straight couple is going to kiss, period. And if the actors feel like, in this particular scene, we're going to kiss, that's not going to be a discussion that executives have, or that a showrunner has to have to get it on TV. That's just how it's going to be. So I think it really depends on, I guess, who's making the show. I don't know if this show could have been made on American network television.
Yeah, maybe on HBO or Netflix or whatever. I think that lack of interference also explains why you've had so few drug deaths and murders on your show.
That's season 6.
Oh, okay, season 6. You mentioned it. We're
Huge crisis.
season 6 is the last season.
Yeah.
Why?
I think it was just. when
I
the
had
show was
originally
supposed
thought
to end.
season 5 was going to be our last season. And then we were fortunate enough to get 2 seasons, and 5 and 6, and as a team, we said great. I had always known how the show was going to end, which I think is important, and we've been building toward that. And it was the inevitable conclusion to the show, and we're going to respect that.
Okay, fair enough. You've answered all my questions about the show. Now I'm going to hit you with a lightning round.
Okay.
All right.
Ooh.
Get ready. And of course, please direct
Sure.
your answers to camera.
Okay.
3. What was the last show you binge watched?
Fleabag, season 2,
Okay.
brilliant.
I still haven't watched it, much to my shame.
Man,
I know that she's going to be writing for the new Bond movie, but that's all I know.
yeah.
Succession.
Succession. Any comments about Succession?
I just love how brutally nasty it is. It's just, I love it, and it's a great cast. I like everything about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an American show.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Correct. Fact.
Okay, what classic TV show do you wish you'd been on?
Going back forever?
Whenever you like.
All in the Family.
What would you have played on All in the Family?
I would have played their long-lost adopted son. I don't know. I don't know what I would have played, but it was a it was a classic. You don't get explanations in this lightning round, so this is all bracketed, and it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
90210.
Of course.
I remember from a young age not even knowing that I wanted to act, but specifically watching that show, I was like, I want to be on that. I don't know what, I'll be someone's cousin, young cousin, who, picks up a cigarette and smokes it when no one's looking. I don't know. It was, 90210.
Jason Priestley was great on SNL. All right, what's the worst job you ever had?
Garbage man.
Interesting, because mine is also pertaining to garbage. I had a job as a PA on Canadian Idol, which was the short-lived Canadian version of American Idol. And my job as a PA was to go into the parking lot where all the contestants who were trying to audition for the show it was like a tent city, and back then it was a huge, people would line up, and these huge parking lots would be filled with people waiting to audition, and I had to go with a garbage bag around to all the tents where these people had been camping out for days and days and days and collect garbage from the tents. Mm-hmm. And when I tell you that I saw everything and anything you could possibly see in this life come out of those tents and into my bag, I'm not exaggerating.
Well, I had to stand on the garbage truck and empty the garbage on the truck and then pack it together until you had 8 tons of garbage on that truck. And the most fun part about it was going to lunch that you ate at the dump. And there was a little shack at the dump where you actually got to have your lunch. Mm-hmm. And
the little eating while they're watching
the little ritual you had to have going in was just making sure you take the cuffs out of your pants and kind of flip them over to get those little maggots out.
Oh, gives new meaning to the phrase junk food.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
All right. Thank you for answering all our questions. Congratulations on the success of the show. Look forward to season 6.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
To see this entire interview or any of our other Emmy Contenders chats, please go to latimes.com.